Well guys, welcome back to another video. Great to be back out. I'm back out on the streets of downtown today. Now, those of you seen my last video, if you haven't seen it, I'll put a link above. I was out with the 14mm and the 35mm, and I showed you a few examples of how you can use those focal lengths when you're out on the street. The 14mm, you can get a bit more creative with it. And with the 35mm, it's a more natural focal length. So what I've done today, I've decided to come out and do a short video about the 85mm. Now what I'm going to do differently with the 85mm today, I'm also going to get close to those foregrounds. Now because it's 85mm, the foregrounds are naturally going to be out of focus. But what I want to be able to show you is you don't always have to have everything in focus. You can have a nice soft foreground and the subject that you're photographing can be nice and sharp. Now it's also going to compress the scene as well, so those buildings in the distance are going to come a lot closer, and also your subjects are at the same time. I'm still going to be looking for light attracts, shiny surfaces, puddles, because what we've had rain for the last couple of days, so there's a lot of moisture about. And hopefully some of those puddles that have occurred will hang around long enough for us to get some shots. So basically I'm just going to be getting close to the foregrounds to frame the images that I'm taking. And it's a good example of showing you another way of using that 85. So it's great to be back out. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Remember, if you haven't seen my last video, I'll put a link above. But let's enjoy the rest of the day and see what I can capture. So I've came to this bit of an alleyway here, and like I said before, I'm out with the 85mm today, and what I want to do is just experiment and play around with foregrounds, the buildings in the background. Now this alleyway I've came to here, there's some light on the building just behind us there to my left side, and there's some lovely light. It really lights that part of the tower up. We've got the revolving tower on the top. But because we've had that rain, there's a guy actually rinsing out part of the alleyway. So it's created this water trail coming down the centre towards the drain. So what I want to do with the 85, I want to get down really close. So I'm actually going to blur out part of that foreground but get close to the water. And then simply get someone crossing the alleyway. And you're going to have that water trail as a leading line because it's also catching some of that light from the sky. You've got these bins behind us here, and if you look on top of the bins, it's also catching that light from the sky, so it gives that foreground interest without the foreground actually being in focus. So what I want to do is shoot across the top of these bins. That's going to be my frame at the bottom. You're going to have that light leading off the top of the bins towards the street that's crossing past this alleyway. Now as I've been coming up the street here, I've noticed the curvature in the side of the bike lane here. And there's some nice brickwork along the edge. Great leading line. The background's going to be nice and dark. Now the subject's also going to be dark, but I'll be able to recover some of that detail when I take it back to post. But I am going to be exposing for the highlights. Now my foreground's going to be nice and soft, but it's still going to have interest, it's still going to have that leading line, and I'm going to have my subject in focus. Now what I'm doing with a lot of the shots today, because of that longer focal length, I'm using manual focus, so I can pinpoint the area where I can presume the subjects are going to pass through. So you'll be able to see how I'm using foreground interest but not necessarily having it in focus. So welcome back. Now I actually had to go home. I made a mistake of not putting the spare battery in my camera. Now I did actually take a shot with my mobile phone before I left. Just to show you and give you an example of shots that you can make with your phone while you're out. And that's a good way of settling into street photography. If you don't want to walk about with a big camera or anything like that, go out and just try your phone till you settle in, you'll get used to it. And eventually you can move on to using your actual camera. So I've seen a shot over here over my left shoulder that I'm going to be able to explain to you. I've got these two pillars and they really stood out to us, and the corner of the street's lit up and the background's lit up with the sun above. It's getting later in the afternoon now. But what I want to do is I want to use the seating area. The seating area's got puddles. And in those puddles I'm getting the reflections from the building behind. So what I want to do is get really close to the seating area, frame the bottom of the shot with the reflections in the water. I'm going to use the two pillars either side, to the left and the right hand side, and they're just simply going to frame the shot. Now because the centre of the image is lit up where the crossing is, all I want to do is wait for the subject standing at that crossing and get the shot. It's going to be as simple as that. I'm going to manual focus, like I've just said, on the end of the street where the crossing is. What I've been doing is watching subjects pass through the shot, see where they're standing, and that gives us a good idea of where to place my focus. So that's basically going to be the shot. I'm going to get back, see if I can grab any more images before it gets too late. But I hope it's given you a few ideas for when you're next out with your camera, whatever focal length you take. Be able to see how I've worked with light today. I've worked with shapes, I've got low to the ground, I've created interesting foregrounds, I've concentrated on framing, and that's been down to the focal length that I've been using today. Now having those out of focus area works out really well when you've got subjects in the shot. Because it's softened and blurred out the foreground, the subject really pops, the subject really stands out. Whereas if everything was in focus at times, the subject would blend in, it would look busy. So while I've been standing in this area, I wanted to try and incorporate this building with a subject with the inclusion of a foreground. So what I've noticed is you've actually got these white lines on the surface of the road next to the crossing. Now where the guy's standing, it actually directs you right over to where the guy is. Now I'm going to have the guy in focus. The foreground, those white lines are going to be out of focus, but it's all about the subject. I think it'll work out really well. Now the position of the sun where it's at, I've got to be aware of my own reflection. Always be aware of your own reflection when you're out doing street photography. Nothing worse than having your own shadow in the shot. So that's going to be it for today's video. I hope it's gave you some ideas of how to use those longer focal lengths when you're out doing street photography. Your foreground doesn't always have to be in focus. It can create interest in your foregrounds. If it's nice and soft, you've still got the shapes, you've got the leading lines, the use of that light, and it frames your subjects really nicely. If you haven't seen my last video, go take a look. I was really pleased with how that video turned out, and it'll give you a good comparison of the 85mm that I've been using today. In the last video I used the 14mm, the 35mm, so they're all great focal lengths to use while you're out doing street photography. You can just create totally different images, and today I thought, you know what, let's see what we can do with the 85. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Don't forget, give it a thumbs up. It really helps my channel out, helps the algorithm, and I hope to see you again for another video soon. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Always great to read your comments, and I'll see you next time. Don't know where, don't know when, but hopefully it's sometime soon. So thanks again for watching, guys. Bye bye.